And you're live.
Good morning. Happy Thursday, guys. I am so excited to share Michael with you from Mohave Massage and Recovery. When I first kind of started watching you, I was like, oh, massage, okay, he's a man, oh, this is, da, da, da. And then you start to jump into what you do. Massage recovery. I think it's just crazy. So then I had invited you to the show, so I was like, okay, well, I need to do my homework. And I started doing my homework, and I literally usually have about 3 things that I like to put on my list of topics. And I was telling Jeff this morning, I could probably do 5 pages of the things that you do, the certifications that you have, the places that you're at. So let me just say, let's just start with who you are and how you really got into the spaces that you are.
Oh, man.
I know.
Yeah. How much time? Stay tuned for episode 2.
We'll be back.
So the short story here is I grew up a fat kid in El Paso, Texas, 300 pounds at my heaviest at about 20 years old. I lost 100 pounds, and by the time I lost 100 pounds, I was enrolled at Arizona State for my exercise science degree, but I also started training cage fighting, MMA. Yeah, a year after I graduated from ASU, I went back to school for massage therapy. A year after massage therapy school, I decided I wanted to try and enter physical therapy school. So I tried for almost 2 years getting in, but really, unless you have a 4.0 and a high GRE score, it's almost impossible. You get 1,600 candidates applying for about 30 spots one time a year.
Wow.
And so I couldn't get my grades good enough, and I ended up in chiropractor school. Not to down talk them, but there's no GRE, right? Some don't require the bachelor's, and they have 3 starting dates a year for the classes of chiropractors. But yeah, all those industries I've been in and out of, and I've gotten certifications through each of them. And I've just kind of handpicked what works for me, what follows my philosophy on what a body needs in order to recover. So
You often talk about in your videos, you talk about adults and babies. You compare us a lot, which I find very interesting as well.
Yeah. That's recently here. I have a 1.5-year-old, and then we have a 2-month-old now. He was born on Halloween.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I use my boys, my sons, as like study objects almost.
Yeah.
I really watch, and I'm intrigued at how well they move, right? Or the learning process when they're doing stuff. And I've just kind of picked up, one of the main things really is tummy time, right? For as an adult, we preach tummy time. But as a parent, we preach tummy time. As an adult, when's the last time we did it, right? And especially when we're sitting down, we're here, computers, whatever. When's the last time, other than stretching in the morning, we really open up our spine? So it's fundamental movements like that if we get back to, it could really help us.
It's really mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Makes me want to stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really talk about massage therapy being 2 different words or 2 different ideas. I know we have a video. Do you want to go there, or do you want to just talk?
I kind of talk about it, and then if you want to elaborate on any part of it. But it's because learning over the years, right, people come to me and they ask me lighter pressure, like, can you go lighter? And really, obviously, I'm a bigger dude. I'm 200 pounds, and with over 15 years of mixed martial arts experience, I use my core. It's hard for me not to have my core behind my movements. So I just learned I can't go light. I can't just fluff around,
Yeah.
So what kind of triggered in my head is that when you look at massage therapy, it's 2 words. Massage, as we generally know it, somewhat relaxing. You go in, you could get some hot stones, relax.
Sage.
Yeah, right. That little waterfall in the background that might make you need to use the restroom halfway through. But
All just gimmicks, right?
Yeah, all that stuff. And but then you look therapy. What's therapy? What's a therapist, right? There's a physical therapist, there's a chiropractor. There's these people who are actually digging in to do therapy to your body. That's why you go to them. And these days now, more recently with science coming around with fascia therapy and things like that, people come to a massage therapist and they are looking to get fixed because they understand and they know now that massage therapy can fix stuff.
Yes. Which is where the massage therapy comes in.
Right. And then if you go to someone who massages, you leave disappointed. And I hear about it still, like people come out, I went to all these massage therapists, what makes you different type deal,
Yeah.
And so it's just they're focusing on, if you go to sleep, okay, right? More than likely with me, you're not going to go to sleep. So I'm going in there, I'm tearing stuff up and I'm restoring range of motion. I'm not just trying to,
Fluff.
Yeah. I was going to say fluff and buff, but I didn't know. So, but and kind of going that route too, careful with the words and happy endings, things like that, right? It's very it could be intimidating for a female to come to a male, right? Early on, I've been licensed over 10 years now, but my first year out in the industry, I would literally have to call places and ask, hey, are you hiring male or a female therapist? And for the most part, the answer was female, because the male request was way down here.
Yeah.
So it is a bit different, and that's why I like to address it. Is like, I know you may feel awkward, but look, like, that's the last thing on my brain. I'm just
Well, the
here to
nice
fix.
thing about it, and that's what I told you, like when we were talking this morning, is going through, immediately I was like, oh, man, massage. You do kind of shy away, but you hit it a lot of things. Like you could do the video. You did a video like, hey, it may make you feel uncomfortable. Here is my process. This is why I'm different. This is why you shouldn't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, going into the therapy of it and not just a massage. It's really a whole different world. We talked about plantar fasciitis, and I suffered from that for 2 years and really couldn't find a relief. Went to the doctors, blah, 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 all kinds of things. And you have a video on it and talk about how it's really something that is fixable with the therapy part of the massage and not just a massage.
So the big thing really, right, in essence, if you look at my work, the power of touch. The power of touch is very powerful. It's an exchange of energy when you touch somebody. When you have plantar fasciitis and you go to a podiatrist, a regular doctor, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, whatever it is, how long do they actually touch your foot?
Not long.
Right?
Because you don't want them to, and they're afraid to,
Yeah, we kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
We could talk about that later too, is that the fear that's instilled in some of these therapists in the schools, but they're not touching, they're relying on imagery. They're, and images, unless you get an MRI, there's always different levels to it.
Yeah.
But if you just dig in and touch, you could be like, oh, this outside of the foot is stuck, not by the arch. And all the focus on plantar fasciitis stuff is all the arch. Oh, frozen water bottle, the arch, this arch, your arch is this, the arch.
Yes. Yes.
So, and me, what I feel is the big unlocking secret for plantar fasciitis is actually on the opposite side of the arch. It's under the ankle bone. That ridge along your little toe, once that, like, the heel should move. And once the space between the bones for the toes and the heel kind of fuse because of tight muscles, instead of getting this two-way moving foot, now the foot is having to move like this. And then those tendons start pulling towards the arch because that's the only, like that's the space it has to go. So, where else do you want it to go?
Yes.
So,
That's where all that pain comes from.
I know, which really leads me into, I like that you say, what do I have it? It's pain-free Bullhead City relief. And you're in Kingman, you're in Bullhead City, you're at Mad Dogs. Because I think a lot of times, and kind of when I was going through that process, it was pain pills, it was this, it was that, and you have a different idea of that, of taking away the pain in different ways.
Yeah. So a good analogy I like to use is our body is a running water hose. Veins, nerves, lymph, it's all fluid, right? And especially if you're older like me, we all used to love to play with the water hose and cinch it off, distort the water. And if you think about the fluid that is flowing through our body, we get tight joints, we have these tight bends, these become kinks in our body. And that starts to slow down the fluid flow in our body. And that's kind of where a lot of the damage can kind of happen, right? Because you're lacking the nerve signal, the blood, whatever it is. And unless you dig in to open up that free flowing fluid, something's always going to be in there. And something like red light therapy or pills or whatever it is, in my opinion, again, it's not in books out there, it's just what I believe. Let's say you're going to do red light therapy on the leg, or you're taking painkillers for sciatica, whatever. They put red light therapy over this, right? But you have kinks from here to here, and there's not good flow. So if that red light therapy is doing all the good work, or maybe your painkillers can't pass this area, right, because of those kinks. So unless these kinks are ever addressed, no medication, no additional therapy, no, whatever it is, but you just have to go in and you have to relieve it so that all our blood, our nerves, our lymph, whatever can flow how it's supposed to flow.
Maybe let's show that video, Jeff, because I feel like when you watch your videos and see you actually working on the body, it makes sense what you're talking about.
And that's why I like to put those videos out like that. Yeah. So body calibration is a modality that I've created over the past 5 years. My first year out of massage school, I did the typical like lotion, deep tissue style of approach on manual therapy.
Probably what everybody told you should be doing, right?
I can talk about the guy who switched my
they didn't have a room,
mentality
but
too.
I knew that I could still do something with my hands, right? So I just put out my table and started doing more of a dry approach. And over the past 5 years now, I've really focused on the dry approach. And every time my clients would ask, like, what is this called? Because it's not a regular massage, it's not deep tissue, it's not specifically trigger point. My response when they ask what is it, what's the name of it, I would just say it's a melting pot of the past 10 plus years of my knowledge. And finally now I've named it body calibration, because I feel like I go in and if someone's shoulder's hurting, I go and kind of recalibrate the whole shoulder chest area, and not go for a deep tissue massage where they're so worried about having to cover the whole landscape of the body, where I could just cover the chunks and dig in really deep. So for body calibration, the tools that I use are the rock tape line. One of them is cupping, which they call the rock pods, and that's for decompression of the fascial layers, and it's not literally bringing the blood out like the heated glass ones are. These are meant for fascial shearing and just a little bit of blood suction towards the skin layers. They also have IA stem, which is instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization tools, which are they call them rock blades, and they're handheld scrapers that you go along the body trying to get into knots and break apart fascia layers in different ways, just in case the cup alone isn't going to tear away a dysfunction or an adhesion. So then you get the blade, you scrape along, and you're able to get that adhesion and pull apart. And then they also have taping, kinesiology taping. That will actually help to decompress layers after the work is done. I like to apply the tape to help keep it almost as a sling or a brace. It's kind of opposite of a compression sleeve, where if you put on like an elbow sleeve, that's actually going to squish all the layers of the muscles and fascia together, which may cause more adhesions. And the kinesiology tape will actually help lift it and allow the fascial layers and muscle layers to slide independently how they should. So for the first time, I listen to the pain symptoms, and then I ask a body movement or some kind of body pattern, and I try and find it. That way I'm actually trying to find the source of where everything's bunching up, because fascia, when it tightens up, it starts to pull from other areas of the body. So if someone's telling me that they actually have, migraine headaches or tension headaches, I look at their stance, I ask how they sleep, I ask what kind of patterns they do at work, things like that, because for example, if that tension headache is coming and their shoulders are rounded forward, right away I'm going to want to open up the chest before I even touch the neck. I could have someone who will come in for typical soreness or maybe a common overuse injury, and they could go once a month for a little while and then they feel good. And then I can have someone with a full knee replacement, and I'm going to have to open them up once a week for about a month and then taper off from there. It just depends on what's going on with their body and how much trauma is actually done to the tissues. To better understand my modality or get eyes on it, you can follow my Instagram. It's at Mike_muscle_mechanic. So that's Mike Muscle Mechanic with the underscore.
Hyundai Power.
Just like that's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
I also, when I watch these and watch your videos, I feel like this year has really been changing for me, because I've chosen doctors who look at me as a person and not as a customer, right? Yeah. And I think that is what your whole aura is based on. Each individual person, each individual muscle, each individual reason why they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head because I genuinely treat every client like they're my last one. You know, like,
Yeah, you never know, right?
yeah, you know, it just, and yeah, I mean, it's, exhausting, right? But it makes sure that I'm giving my best to every client. Yeah.
I was again watching your videos. So at Mad Dogs, you do a boxing class.
Yeah.
At like
yeah.
5:30 in the morning, and I was like, Jeff, like this guy probably starts his morning at 5 a.m. and probably doesn't end his morning until I don't know 9 o'clock at night because you
Yeah.
have your Kingman spot, you have
Yeah.
your Bullhead spot, you do stuff at Mad Dog Fitness.
Yep.
Tell us, I mean, how did you even get to Bullhead?
So, after COVID, really, we were in DFW, my wife and and I basically told my wife, I said, you know, I could either stay here, rebuild, or we go back to Kansas City and I could rebuild. She's from Kansas City, born and raised, so we had literally decided to go there. It was our first day in Kansas City. I was on a plane out here to help my dad. He was sick with pneumonia. And he was almost 84 at the time. He's almost 87 now. You know, you're watching him move around and stuff. It just kind of clicked in my head, like, you know, it's not much time, better get around. So he's the reason I moved out here. And by February of 21, I was living out here. Yeah.
Wow.
So, even though I live in Bullhead, sorry, but I was gonna say Kingman seemed to have pulled me for work, you know, and so Tuesday, Thursday mornings, whereas Tuesday is my boxing class. Like Tuesday, Thursday mornings, I do personal training too. So I kind of stay
I'm
at
telling
Mad
you,
Dog.
the list goes on and on.
Jiu-jitsu, yeah, that's my pride and joy there. Yeah, but yeah, Tuesday mornings, I'm at Mad Dog from 6 to 10 because I have some regulars I've been training for like over a year now. And then 5:30 to 6:30 on Tuesday morning is when I run that class. After 10, usually at 11:30, I start my afternoon here in my Bullhead office on Lakeside. And then all day Wednesday, Fridays, I'm in Kingman. Saturdays, just in the morning, I'm back here at my Bullhead office. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit. So again, I keep touching on the fact that I feel like you hit the spots that nobody wants to talk about. On your sites, you talk about working with people with Parkinson's and all kinds of different things that I feel like a lot of people are in fear of jumping head on in.
Yeah, you know, so watching that video, I lightly mentioned I could talk about the guy who inspired me to kind of walk out of the spa arena. This gentleman, Steve Hanoyan, Synapse Therapy out in Huntington Beach. At the time, any UFC fans out there, he was working on Werdum and Dos Anjos when they were the champions. He's also worked on Pacquiao and Mayweather, right? But this guy, I messaged him and I'm like, hey man, I do massage, like I would love to learn from you. He invited me out to Huntington Beach, and so I went out there for a week and I shadowed him for a week. Now this guy, I mean, you think my results are good? I mean, he's more neurological too and stuff, but he for 10 years he only saw people in wheelchairs. Yeah, he's fit. He helped Freddie Roach's drop foot. Those who know the boxing coach with Parkinson's. You know, but he's very neurological in his work, right? But watching him work when I returned back to Fort Worth, as I mentioned in that video, is like, you know, I didn't have a room, but I told the manager, like, can I put my table here? I think I can do something, right? And
like, let me try.
Yeah, right. So you don't know if you can do something. I mean, that's the first thing, right? It's like if it's an idea, you don't know if you're actually gonna do it unless you try it. So he let me put a table out there on the gym floor, and you know, person by person, I kept doing that. And that led me to actually working in more gyms than spas over those years, especially because how I mentioned, like, you know, male therapists weren't really requested. And then once I started seeing something as simple as sciatica, right? Like when I fixed that.
Such a common thing in everybody's body, really.
Yeah, and I was about to laugh because, you know, I say it's simple for me to fix, right? But you go maybe a chiropractor for 6 months. And, you know, so it's like 3 visits with me, more than likely you're going to be fixed or something. But, you know, so it's just, you know, back then, something as simple as that, when I would see this improvement and I'm fixing it, I'm like, what? Like, I'm able to do this?
Yeah.
And so then that kind of fueled me more and more. And that's where it just became like, okay, like I don't know what I can't do unless I do this.
Yeah.
You know, so that.
So
yeah.
really power over fear, because
Yeah.
right, you said that when you're kind of going through school, they're telling you like, you know, stay in this box, stay in this box, stay in this box.
Yeah.
And you said like every time you jump out of that box and try, the results have been amazing.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, you know, fear is instilled. You know, as a personal trainer, you know, that's actually how I got towards massage. Is like foam. I became a big believer in foam rolling early on as a personal trainer. So you know, that's what triggered me towards massage. But also, in the fear in the personal training is like if you put hands on somebody and you don't have the proper training, like the certification to back it up, then you're liable. That's a lawsuit, right? So that's what I learned early on. Chiropractors, you know, spinal fusions and this and whatever cages, you know, because they twist, and so that's their scope. But you know, it's again, spinal fusion, I'll work on any time, all the time. I'll dig through that cage, I'll open up range of motion. So it's just things like that where the fear is instilled, but me, I'm just like, well, let me dig in until you say stop.
Yeah, like
So,
we can't help it until we get everything moving, right?
yeah, and movement is key, you know.
Jeff, let's go into one of his other videos. I mean, I could have watched your videos all day long too. So if you guys are bored, you should check it
All right,
out.
guys, like stretching alone won't fix everything, okay? And this is why I stress foam rolling more than stretching. This is nice, young muscle tissue, right? No damages, no injuries, nothing like that. Okay, in my case, in middle school, I was playing on monkey bars, slipped and fell, landed flat on my back, was never treated for that. Okay, in cage fighting, in MMA, I was slammed on my back during a triangle attempt, which I had some chiropractic adjustments for a post, but never corrected deep tissue trigger point work, right? Even like in these past few years, I tore the same MCL twice in the same spot, okay? Now, this, if I just stretch, what's happening to the knots? They may become smaller, it may elongate the muscle bellies in between the knots, but the knots are still there, right? Unless I physically, manually go in with something, in this case, you know, I took an iron and just melted it back, which would be equivalent to IA stems, the grasping, the scraping, getting the knots out, right? Unless something is actually done to the dysfunction, it's always going to be there. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am and you have a different opinion on it,
I
let me
welcome
know.
it, you know?
But
Yeah.
unless it's actually
talk,
taken
huh?
out of there with something. Alright guys, why stretching alone won't fix everything, okay? And this is why I stress foam rolling
It's starting
more
over,
than
Jeff.
stretching.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's it, right?
Yeah. And you know, we kind of mentioned that earlier when I was talking about the fluid flow going through our body. That's kind of one of the easiest ways I've come up with. I did
Gives
a
us
very
a good visual.
Yeah.
Because we all feel it. You just don't think about the visualization of
yeah.
it.
A very old video I did on the similar concept is, remember drying glue on your hand?
Yep.
And then peel. So I dried glue and I folded my hand like this though, right? And I let it dry like this. So when I opened it, all that glue, the dry glue, it tore apart. And so that represents the fascia, right? If we get stuck like this and then we finally go to tear it open, you know, that our fascia encases the muscles. So that's just another visual way of kind of thinking about fascia, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, 15 years, MMA experience. I mean, literally, it's just crazy.
So I know I mentioned, I said young, healthy tissue, right? And that's kind of how you heard of me with Mickey.
Yes.
Did we tell a story? Or
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So he was celebrating and he rolled his ankle on the way down.
One of my football players.
And I told him the story about Feely, you know, on the Cardinals. Bruce Buffer was celebrating, popped his knee. I was like,
It
dude,
just happens
yeah. I was
sometimes.
like, be careful, right? And I told him what I tell my fighters. Actually, I say, act like you've been there and do it again, right? So don't get
Don't
happy
get
on
so
that.
excited.
But so he came and, you know, his ankle was just like way popped out, right? And let's say he didn't see me, if he didn't come find me, that unless he did something to that area and flattened out the knot and the trauma that's going to follow and the tightness that will also follow, that would follow him, until it's addressed. And he's in high school right now.
Yeah.
I actually did a foam rolling seminar at River Valley High School with the wrestling team, and it surprised me that I just took a few foam rollers in and they shared, but just rolling the legs out a little, they stood up. High schoolers, right?
Yeah.
They stood up and they were just like, "Oh man, I feel looser." Like this,
Like,
you're
oh.
15 years old. What do
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and we were in the middle of our state game, so we assumed that our quarterback was not going to be able to play. His mom sent me a picture. I want to say it was like 2 days later, and was like, "Look at his ankle. Like, you wouldn't even know that happened." And we're predicting 2 or 3 weeks out. You maybe even the rest of this, like not even. And he played
That week, right?
Yeah.
It was like a week later?
Yeah. I was like, oh, this guy, like, it's amazing. I also wanted to really bring awareness to that. We all have kids who play sports. Most of our kids play from a very young age and play, off season, on season. So what we require of them as parents is probably crazy, and coaches. So I wanted to you to talk about that how you can help them, as well as, our older generation, our maybe parents, grandparents who are suffering from things that haven't been able to be addressed. You're not afraid to touch, to really dig into either area.
Yeah. I'll use this comparison I like to give because it's a very famous one, right? LeBron James or Michael Jordan, who's the GOAT, who's better? Now, the one thing I like to point out, and, Michael Jordan, when he was out there winning the championship, he lived off Gatorade. Right? That's all he had. Yeah, Gatorade and Tim Grover, which is his trainer that yelled at him. If you know him, you can read his book and stuff. Relentless.
Gatorade paid good.
Yeah, right. But you look at LeBron James and what we have nowadays for recovery, right? Lasers, red light therapy, cold plunge. MJ had
goes
cold
on
plunge,
and
right?
on,
But
right?
but the science, the what's the awareness. There you go. The awareness of injuries and the fact that we could prevent them, and that if we prevent them, we could actually make our performances better. And so, MJ versus LeBron, I say if MJ had what we have nowadays, LeBron would never even be in the picture, right? So we have gone from a society who lived off Gatorade and just Vicks Vapor Rub,
Extra protein,
right? And to where now we are finally understanding foam rolling, mobility work, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But then for the kids, unfortunately, a lot of that knowledge isn't reaching some of the coaches unless they go out on their own to find it.
You're so right.
Some of those coaches are going off what they learned back in the day, which was Vicks and Gatorade.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, suck it up. Can you walk? All right, get out there and keep going. And it's just different, too, because with today's technology, phones, video games, things like that, kids love them. I used to love video games. I was, addicted. But if you sit down all day.
They're not moving.
Yeah, and then you go, that old term 0 to 100. That's kind of what they're doing from the last period in class right into practice. And there's probably no foam rolling work. There's no warm up of waking up your backside, really, because if we're sitting down in school all day sleeping, right?
Yeah.
Texting and like this, the teacher won't look. But you need to activate your posterior chain, as it's called, everything back here. Cause we don't wake it up. Going back to the tummy time thing, right? The kids these days are going from a very stagnant position to sprint all the way across the field, lift this weight over your head,
You're right.
whatever it is. And when you don't allow your body to respond to the demand it's about to have, that's where the injuries happen. Because it's like when someone's, when we're older and people are like, oh, I threw my back out sneezing or coughing, because they didn't believe it or not, you got to brace your core when you sneeze or cough. You should inhale here. A lot of times when we're coughing sick or something, we go, that's all chest breathing. And a lot of compression could happen around the collarbone, but really it should be through the diaphragm, So it's small, minute movements like that when we go and do it without thinking, our body can't catch up because our brain wasn't telling that body part to say, hey, this is about to happen,
Crazy. I also think, and I have not been a client of yours, but I think I'm going to be a client of yours. But I think that you talk with your clients just like this, and get into the details of the why and the how and the should, which is also very different from when you go get just a massage.
And going back to, I haven't forgotten where I came from. I was that uneducated, fat consumer who didn't know anything. And I just went into the gym and did the same routine probably for a year or something, right? Because, again, I was that consumer who didn't know any better. And whenever I see that in my clients, I almost do anything I can to remove it from them, because that is very disabling for anything you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, so I want to try and take that roadblock out and say, hey, you can understand this. Like, you can take care of this too. Like, kind of giving the why behind it, like what's happening under there, which a lot of doctors don't. They're kind of reading the report, and that's about it.
Well, and even physical therapists, trainers, they're setting up your routine. But if we get to you with a problem or an injury, or, our coaches, you really understand the beginning parts that need to happen to help your body get ready for all those movements, which most of us don't do. We jump right in.
And that philosophy comes from my jiu-jitsu background. I believe in jiu-jitsu that fundamentals win. And so when it comes to moving, everyone wants to do all the fun, fancy stuff they see on social media, you know?
Looks cool.
Yeah, but they could barely do a proper Superman, which is just laying on your tummy time, right? They can barely do tummy time as an adult, but they want to go and lift this 100-pound barbell over their head. So forgetting those fundamental movements, right, are key to do an exercise. It requires a body to move to perform an exercise. So if you forget how to move, you forget where you should move. Like your
almost
body.
retraining your body.
Yeah. So there's two terms here that three real quick. Texture's thumb is a legit diagnosis these days, which makes me sad. Yeah.
All of us are.
Yeah, they do shots. Kanye West, right? He talked about this on Joe Rogan podcast. He had to get shots, but Texture's thumb has been around. I say like 6-7 years. The worst case I saw was actually it is. And the worst case I saw was a medical student at a spa I was working at in Kansas City. I worked on all this, right? And I said, okay, move your thumb like this. Because Texture's thumb, you tend to get stuck like this, right? And so she had to stare at it for literally like 3 to 5 seconds. And I saw the panic start to happen because her thumb wasn't responding. And she was like, and then finally, and she's like, it moves. And so that's Texture's thumb. But the other two things I was going to talk about, gluteal amnesia is also a legit diagnosis. Your brain literally forgets how to talk to your butt. You can no longer pinch your butt cheeks, right?
Just because of lack of movement?
Yeah.
Really? Like our body just almost forgets
That's what I was trying to say. I'm like, how can I, because I know people are like, how does that happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the main things is because our hip flexion, that's the second term I'm going to come over, talk over here real quick. But when our hip flexors become so tight, when we walk, we are actually not extending our hip anymore. We're actually just walking through our quads and our calves.
Wild.
Yeah, and the other scientific term you could look up is synergistic dominance, okay? And let's say you have gluteal amnesia, but you're outside trying to do sprints. Your glutes, your hips are very important for that sprint motion. But in synergistic dominance, you have the agonist, the antagonist, and the synergist, which is like the main moving muscle, the opposing moving muscle of that, and then the muscle in the middle that helps balance everything. So when you're running, you flex the hip, right? But then to propel forward, your hip needs to extend. In the middle of that is our deepest hip flexor. It's called the psoas, and that's the synergist. And so when we cannot pinch our butt and activate our butt, our psoas is working. So we're now, when you talk about low back pain, herniated disc between L1 and L5, sciatica, anything like that, more than likely it's going to be something along these lines with the gluteal medius or the synergistic dominance, because our hip flexors are taking over too much to allow the backside to activate and be used. So
then that area gets lazy. That's probably where all the tightness comes from.
Yeah. So I know that was a lot there, but
no, it makes, when you start to think about it that way, I mean, you know, I'm 40 something now, and I was very active in my 30s, and I feel that. I feel like my body's not communicating, and my muscles are getting weak because I'm lazy, is what it really comes down to.
Yeah, right. Because movements, right? And so, and not that it's really laziness, but you know, maybe this might get some of that for you. But like, I actually stopped using the word stretch or yoga with my clients, because when you think of yoga, what do you think of? Well,
Nice movement.
Well, yeah. Not only that, I guess I should ask more time-wise on your day. What kind of demand would a yoga class have?
Like 30, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, probably.
Like it's just time, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so if you know in your head that you can't commit that 30 minutes, will you even stretch for 5 minutes?
Yeah, probably not.
Right?
But 5 minutes I could set that in my day for sure.
Right. And so and then even along those lines, using the word stretch, if I say, hey, you need to make sure you stretch, well, how do I stretch? I go look up yoga. So stretching and yoga are almost synonymous these days with my clients. So to take that limitation off, I say, look, you just got to move. If you're sitting down all day, actually, I'll use this example. Sleeping, right? When we sleep, a lot of side sleepers out there, right? And I always get a lot of, I'll connect it with the baby here. Another baby movement we forget about. So sleeping, okay, side sleeping, we compress one side, we curl it up, we're in fetal position. That's a very bad pattern that our body our fascia learns and shortens the muscles in our body because of it. Babies, they fall asleep like this.
They do.
Arms
They're
over the
stretched
head,
out,
right?
right? They're like,
So I've actually had clients ask me in fear, is it okay to fall asleep with your arms over your head? Because their arms go to sleep. I'm like, haven't you ever seen a baby fall asleep? Right? So just because your arms are falling asleep doesn't mean it's bad. It just means your body's not used to that motion anymore. You have a lot of kinks here, right? Trying to open that kinked
Pressure,
water hose.
stress.
Yeah, it's not going to really, stress up here, right? And so when my clients come to me about sleeping, I tell them, how do I sleep? How should I sleep? I said, well, don't worry about how you're sleeping, because then you won't sleep. Right?
yeah, just another thing to worry about.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to worry about, because everything else is already hectic. But it goes to preventative care, just like recovery. I tell them, before you go to sleep, do as many backward arm circles as you can. And the first thing you do when you wake up, do as many backward arm circles as you can again. It's not forward arm circles, because all this would activate coming forward on the arm circle. You're actually waking up the medial head of your tricep and your rotator cuff coming back this way, and which actually breaks up a lot of tension that is formed in the armpit area. If you're my client watching this, and you've probably been there.
I feel like you dig into the armpit.
Yeah, like the lat here, it becomes like LA rush hour. Those muscle tendons interlace and they get stuck, and I got to go in there and break them up, right? But if you go and you do your backward arm circles, you're going to activate that area. You're going to get as much blood as you can to that area. And then go compress it for 5 to 8 hours, however long you sleep. And then when you wake up, though, after you stopped all that blood flow from compressing it sideways, wake up and do it again. Get the nerve signal, get that blood back in there, and don't let it go to sleep on you.
It's amazing to even think about it, because you think, you like you said, you were here all day. We're here all day. I mean, you could see my shoulders right now doing it, right?
Yeah.
And then we're sleeping like that. So backward arm circle. Don't forget.
They will help you. You'll be surprised.
Where can they reach you? Where can they find you? What's your best avenue to get a hold of you?
So on Facebook, Instagram, Mohave Massage Recovery. Our Instagram is just Mohave Massage. Phone number 928-404-5350. You could call or text me. You can message me on the social medias as well. Again, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, I'm in Bullhead. Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm in Kingman. Some Sundays and Mondays, I actually go to Vegas and train jiu-jitsu. So,
Yeah.
I'm actually, all over, everywhere, all the time. I'm just on autopilot. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
really quick, just want to touch on if you have student athletes, I think he's a great person to call, get them in, get ahead of the game on their bodies.
Yeah, and like she mentioned, both ends, right? Young athletes out there probably won't want to hear this comment, but athletes are easy, right? It's really lack of foam rolling and mobility work a lot on their parts, right? They want all the fun, explosive stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then the boring, slow foam rolling stuff they don't really want part of. But also on the other end with the elderly, I mean, I've dealt with joint replacements, Parkinson's, sciatica, migraines, cages, scoliosis repairs. Again, if you're in pain, I'm not afraid to dig in and try and help you. So yeah.
Yeah. Give them a call. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Like I said, I was super excited to have you come on, and then the more I learned, the more I was just more excited. So I feel like we're going to do a part 2. I mean, this was a lot of information, and we'll have to come and see you and do a community spotlight on you. We do that as well. But thank you for the information. If you're in need, give him a call. If you're going to the pain doctor and you're not finding relief in different things, you are your best advocate. He might be your next step, right? Thank you so much. Have a good day, guys. Shop local, support local. Go get yourself taken care of.